That's Obi. That's JD. And welcome to the Sports Den on Spanglish World Network, Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android. When you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV, lastly, is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV 6, Roku 6, and all Smart TV 2016 order. Okay, cool. Gentlemen, how we doing?
I'm happy to be here.
Hate that thing
last week, but I'm glad to see you guys still doing well. And JD is enjoying this weekend for sure.
Mostly.
Yeah, it was a heck of a roller coaster, but it was a good weekend overall.
You know, it was one of those ones that kind of started out low and then picked up a little bit. We'll get into all that and what may or may not be the single worst day in any city's history when it comes to sports. I feel pity as a Jersey guy who's every one of his teams is a rival to Philly. I feel bad for Philly Nation, but we will get to that in turn. First and foremost, though, we are going to be starting off with his team that actually is doing well right now. His team that actually had a very impressive win yesterday, winning by the score of 20-17 over the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo billing the Bills there. JD, you want to start this off? Your team is 6-3, man.
I still can't wrap my head around this. I mean, my reaction yesterday when it happened, because I didn't even really pay attention or watch most of the game because I already had enough disappointment with the Union watch party on Saturday, so I already knew what I was expecting with the Jets, so I didn't bother. And normally they don't show Jets games down in Philly anyway. But also, it's the Bills. I expected a beat down. You know, so I periodically check the score on my phone. I think they were down 17-10 or 17-3 at one point, and then or 10-3. I saw they were losing, but only by a touchdown, maybe 10 points. Mm-hmm. And I checked in the fourth quarter and saw, wait, it's tied in the fourth quarter, and they have a chance to win. Oh, and they're showing it on TV down here. Okay, well, let me watch the last few minutes and see what happens. Wow, they actually pulled this off. What? I was not expecting that this weekend. It's like Allen and Wilson switched, but also at the same time, Wilson playing not to lose is effective. It reminds me of those of the 2009 Jets team with Mark Sanchez as a rookie, where they did well despite Sanchez and his rookie mistakes, and it was a defense with several Hall of Famers. And a strong running game that got them to the playoffs. And it appears that formula is repeating itself a year ahead of schedule for the Jets. Because, you know, with their sixth win, they already passed the Vegas line of 5.5 wins for the season. I knew I should have dropped a few bucks on that, but because I thought, hey, 6 or 7 might actually win.
Yeah, but you know how that would work based on the rookies all being the way it is. You'd have a season that Rich Kotite would be like, damn, you guys sucked. You know, if you drop that money, you're guaranteed to lose it in some way.
Exactly. This is a pleasant surprise. As with anything regarding the Jets, I remain guarded because I've been burned so many times. I don't get excited about it. Like, this is nice. Good momentum heading into the bye. It kind of makes up for what happened last week. I was also impressed with how Wilson was either starting to throw the ball away or take the sack, you know, when that was the better move to do, as opposed to throwing the ball all over the place and getting a bunch of dumb interceptions against the Patriots. So this shows that I guess they are for real. They're going into the bye, and then then they're going up to New England, which is tough no matter what the circumstances. So that should be a good one. We will see what happens. But I don't even understand how it's working so far. So it's more like I'm not really too overly excited about it because I don't totally understand how it's working as well as it is right now. So, okay, let's roll with it.
But you're a little bit of a believer now too, which is interesting.
I am a bit of a believer. I'm not fully waving the flag like Brandon does, at least not yet. But I'm here for it.
I'm going to add a couple things. Obi, do you have anything first before I get into my thing on that?
I mean, my experience with that game matches JD so much. I mean, it wasn't the main game on. It was a game I was checking my score, my score app for. And then at some point in our group chat, someone says the Jets might win, and like 2 seconds later, the game pops up on the TV. And then Wilson, like taking the sack is the wrong move 9 out of 10 times. And that was the right time to take the sack.
Mm-hmm.
Losing that 7-8 yards down the goal line and not stopping the clock was the right move. Buffalo has to take the timeout. So that was either really mature or really lucky. And that, I think, is where JD's coming from. Like, did he make the right move, or did he just get lucky and get sacked before he had a chance to do something stupid? And then Sauce Gardner, man. That entire first 4 picks for the Jets. What a great draft they had last year. Knock wood that all stays in the ACL, heals up right. But everybody looks to be the right guy at the right spot. But Sauce is something. And that no call on that play, like I think I could have seen. I did not think it was pass interference. But if a ref had called pass interference, I wouldn't have been surprised. Sauce was being pulled onto the guy, and his hand is out to keep his balance. And they don't call it. That's a great no call, great defense. And that, I think, is really how the Jets are doing it. I think you get a guy like that, you remember it with Revis, you see it in a few other guys throughout the NFL who can just cover anybody. And you can play, 10-on-10 defense is a lot easier than 11-on-11 defense. So when you get that one-on-one matchup, that's fantastic. And I think that's why the Jets are doing well. And then all the props in the world to Josh Allen, because when he said after the game, which we can't quote on our station, but he said, this is the quarterback. He said, it's a tough thing to win when the quarterback plays like beep. And so all kudos to him that he took it on himself that way. I don't know if it was all on him, but good for him on that. The Jets, I think, are a legitimate wild card team. I don't think they're going to catch Buffalo overall. I think they're going to stumble once or twice more, but they're a playoff team and they look like a playoff team. The future of the quarterback, we'll see if he can turn it into a game manager to a guy who's going to win a Super Bowl, but right now he's not a piece of garbage.
Right. And since the Jets have had so much garbage at the quarterback position, I'm okay with a competent game manager on a rookie deal. There was a lot of times that Mark Sanchez was infuriating to watch. But there was times that he pulled it out. There was times where he literally face planted in hilarious ways. But also times like the game against San Diego in the 2009 playoffs, and in the Patriots in 2010. I think I'm seeing a lot of the same with Wilson so far. Cautiously optimistic. I mean, it's only one game, but the ability to turn it around from 1 week to the next. And Allen had the kind of game that I would have expected Wilson to have. Which is a credit to the Jets defense. And it's Sauce is a beast, the best since Revis by far, and he's only a rookie. So we'll see. So we'll see where this goes, and if the league figures him out. But it's been fantastic so far. It's just I barely believe what I saw. Like I saw it, but I don't quite believe it. It's not really processing. Like, did that really happen? Like, how 6-3? What? How? This?
Both New York teams and the Devils too. We'll throw that in the mix in this case, but we're not going to go into that here. It's surreal. When you look at what the last 5 years of pure unbridled misery have been. Now the Jets and the Giants have not made the playoffs in the same season since 2006. Last year, 7 losses got you into the playoffs. The team with the worst record with 7 losses was the Pittsburgh Steelers at 9-7-1. So if you look at it from the Jets' perspective, all they really have to do is get 4 losses in the next 8. And based on that math, they will get into the playoffs. And that is feasible. It's very doable, I think. You talked about the fact that they have New England next week. Yeah, that's not going to be any picnic. They're going to have to play Buffalo again. It's going to be no picnic there. But they have the benefit of having been in last place last year, so their schedule is a little bit easier by a result. And going 4-4 the rest of the way, 5-3, I think it's doable. I think that team could win. 10. Hell, why not? Let's go shoot for the moon here. 11 wins. The Jets could actually win 11 games this season. Which, I mean, my question in this case here is who gets Coach of the Year, Brian Dable or Robert Saleh?
Well,
that's a tough one because neither team was expected to do much of anything.
And they're in the same city, so you got the sports writers splitting their votes.
Well, and if we're going to talk Coach of the Year, I know we talked about part of today is we're going to talk about the sadness in Philly. But what we're seeing out of Hurts on the Eagles, there's another guy who.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people expected the Eagles to win the NFC East. That was my pick anyway. And I think it'd be shocking if the Eagles actually blow the NFC East lead. So, Coach of the Year, I can't do it.
I think everyone expected the Eagles to win the NFC least. I don't think people were expecting them to win the NFC Beast, which is what we have. That close to everybody being above 500. So I think that's the big difference. I think people are talking about
your third place Giants team would be in first place anywhere else.
Right. Yeah. I think what Nick Sirianni has done with Hurts, and I am still not a Hurts believer, and which is probably a great thing for all of the rest of my Philadelphia Eagle fans, because my quarterback prognostication is horrific. But I think that what Soriano's done, I still think there's a half a season to go. Let's see what happens. Let's see if there's some turnarounds, more of some of these lower teams to get into the playoffs. See who doesn't end up tanking the second half of the season. But right now, I'm not poo-pooing either of the New York coaches. I'm just saying let's not forget Soriano either.
Yeah, Sirianni definitely is in Coach of the Year conversation for sure. It'll be one of those in the I-95 corridor, let's say. Looking at the Jets' upcoming schedule, they have the bye this week. Then they're at New England, Chicago at home, at Minnesota, at Buffalo, Detroit at home, Jacksonville at home, at Seattle, at Miami. Those last 2 weeks are tough. But
that is a tough schedule, but Detroit they can take. Who else was in there? I forgot that you mentioned. There was a couple teams.
The Bears and Jacksonville to be the three. Like, give me those games. That's 9 right there. 9 wins right there.
Fields notwithstanding,
Vikings could go
incredible numbers yesterday.
The Vikings seem like fool's gold to me. Like, I just haven't been that. They've been winning, but I just haven't been that impressed with them.
They were not at all impressive this weekend against Washington. That's the game I had my eyes on for most of the afternoon. And that Washington game, they were young being on the bench away from winning. That's Tyler Heineke. That was staying in that game. The Vikings have some issues to prove because their division looks weak, so it helps them. But they're looking. I guess the Vikings still have Buffalo and Miami left. I don't recall them playing each other yet. So Vikings have some losses that they might be pocketing.
But they're in a division where they're 4.5 games in front.
Right. They're a playoff.
At this point, you can afford to lose a couple of games. When you have a Packer team that's 3-6.
I'm getting at, Scott, is with the way the playoffs are now, the Jets could probably be playing for a playoff spot the last week of the season, a wild card spot. The Vikings may have zilch to play for, especially if they lose a couple more games. The Eagles don't. Yeah.
Well, they play the Vikings in December 4th, so it's the 2 road games at Seattle and at Miami is how they close up the season.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that Seattle game is going to be tough, and I don't know what to make of Miami yet. I still think they're going to come back to earth at some point, but this definitely feels like a combination of 2009 with Sanchez rookie year,
And Rex.
and also 2015 with taking advantage of an easy schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Because that year they had one of the easiest schedules in the league and went 10-6 and had a shot to make the playoffs until Dale Patrick blew up in Buffalo. The last game of the season.
Right.
So it's another one of those. As I've said before, anytime the Jets are heading into the last weekend of the season with a control your own destiny scenario, it doesn't go well usually.
Well, like I said, 4-4 would probably get them into the playoffs. So.
Yeah, but looking at this schedule, 4-4 is absolutely doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to win one tough game in 3 games against teams that have not playing well. So just find one of those games to win.
And I think, and honestly, in all fairness, I think the Patriots have pretty much righted that ship as well. So I think they will be a tough draw this weekend. Yeah,
well, next weekend actually they have the bye this weekend.
Sorry.
So yeah, on the 20th, anytime as we saw last week, you can never bet against Darth Hoodie when it comes to owning the Jets for 20 plus years now.
Yeah, he is. To go down the road we haven't talked about, but something that's been on my mind is, the Darth Hoodie and Brady debate. Look, you cannot win in the NFL if you do not have good players. But good players cannot win without a good coach. And there's no question that Hoodie gets more out of players than other people get out of players. And, he gets these wins again in games that New England had no business beating the Jets 2 weeks ago, and they did. The Jets don't make the playoffs. That's going to be the game that I think everyone's going to look back at and go, "You missed one game. That was the game you were supposed to win." Instead, Darth Hoodie came down and said, "Who's your daddy?" to the Jets one more time.
Yeah, but it all evens out with the win against Buffalo yesterday. So crazy things happen in football. And then the Patriots went on to beat the Colts so badly that they fired their coach today to hire somebody off the street. Which has never happened in the NFL before.
Like they were like, let's just pick like that's a PR move. That was totally a PR move. Like, who can we hire who the fans love? I love Jeff Saturday. He's one of my all-time favorite ball players. Thought he should have won the MVP in the Super Bowl. But I don't see how he's a head coach in the NFL material, having sat at a desk in ESPN for the last however many seasons.
He coached a high school in Georgia for a few years. Apparently, that's the extent of his coaching experience.
Okay,
and they have 2 former head coaches on that Colts staff with Gus Bradley and John Fox, who were assistants on Reich's staff.
And Fox has had good success in the past too.
Yeah,
hit or miss, but he's had some
Super Bowls. Bradley won a Super Bowl as an assistant with Seattle. So they're more than capable of being interim coaches, having been, established head coaches in the NFL for several years.
And knowing the team for half a season at this point too.
Right. So just to do that and everybody, and I think Elias did their digging and said, nope, this hasn't happened in the modern NFL to bring in somebody completely outside as an interim coach like this. You see it in baseball or basketball or hockey all the time, but not in football because of how intricate these coaching staffs are.
I wonder if those 2 guys looked at the team and they know something that they know. Like, this team is not made to win. They probably told that Jonathan Taylor is resting the rest of the season. And these 2 guys like, no, I'm not taking this job.
You're thinking maybe lame duck then.
Yeah, they were like, this is too lame duck of I'm not taking this lame duck interim role. It's not like one of those situations where the interim coach is going to be able to get 5, enough wins to pad his resume in some way or another, even if they don't keep the job. Maybe that's what's up. Because it was a shocking firing, and not to give it to one of the guys who was already there is really oddball, as you pointed out from Elias.
And the stat that we got before was, Frank Reich has had 7 different starting quarterbacks since 2018. When Andrew Luck left, they had 6 different quarterbacks in a 4-year stretch there. He still went 40, 33, and 1 since 2018. So the team has actually had a winning record despite a complete turnover on a regular basis in starting quarterback. So
they made the playoffs in that stretch too.
What's that?
They made the playoffs at least once, I think, maybe twice.
Yeah, and they narrowly missed it last year, and that was kind of a shame. Which maybe that set some of the wheels in motion right now. But all of the memes that I saw on Twitter today were all in favor of Frank Reich. I saw one where basically some kid was sitting there on a swing set, and it's Frank Reich basically, watching the Colts melt down, and there's a gigantic fire in the background, and you see this kid on a swing set completely oblivious and having a good time. That's pretty much what Frank Reich is right now. He's like, listen, I did what I could. I will get a job anywhere else, and possibly in a more organized team here.
Yeah. I believe he will get. He will be one of the higher sought after coaches when the carousel starts.
Yeah, which opens up where that could end up being, but that's a conversation I think for another time. Are we good here? Should we move on to the city of brotherly love, or they're going to call it the city of brotherly pain?
Yeah, we can move on to the sadness.
Yeah. Let me start off by saying, like I said, being in Jersey here, and every single one of my teams being a rival in some facet or form to Philadelphia, I feel bad for Philly Nation, because I don't know when the last time was any city lost two major championships in the same day.
It's never happened.
It's never happened. Yeah, I mean, 3 minutes away from the Union actually being able to win the MLS Cup. And then, okay, granted, I mean, the Phillies were not really expected to basically take it as far as they did, and credit they got as far as they did. But Game 7 would have at least salvaged some of the sting of a Union loss. And, yeah.
The part of the irony in this is the fact that for both championships were taken away by Philly area born and raised people playing for the other team. Chaz McCormick was from Westchester and went to Millersville University out in Lancaster, a D2 school, and he made that catch against the wall that robbed Kyle Schwarber and sunk the Phillies in game 5. Then you had John McCarthy, the backup goalie for LAFC, who was only in there after a ugly injury to Maxime Crepeau earlier in overtime, which I think he broke his leg or tore his ACL, something nasty something nasty enough that they didn't show a replay of it and had to bring the card out, which led to the ridiculous 9 minutes of stoppage time added on, because that's how long it took to
be
get
fair, that was a legitimate proper amount of time, though, I think.
Right, yes. Just the circumstances led to that much time being added on. Point number one, I don't understand why overtime in soccer in the MLS isn't golden goal. I know they've gone back and forth with that. MLS changes the rules and changes the playoff format every year, so it's hard to keep track of it over the years. I don't understand why it should be like hockey, sudden death, first goal over. And I thought that way before the Union. There was actually people celebrating in the stands and at watch parties around the city that thought that the Union had won with that goal, and then were confused when they started playing. So it should be penalty kicks are a terrible way to decide a championship, and I don't know any soccer fans that think otherwise. I understand that you need that. How you're because penalty kicks have such a randomness to it. It's like deciding a World Series with a home run derby.
It's like having a World Series.
I like the intrigue and the drama of every single kick. I know I'm in the minority. I've said this before. I know that basically I'll get lynched for saying this, but yeah, I actually like it. I do.
Yeah, you like it because your team won.
Even before that, even last year when I started, well before I had any idea how that was going to play out, I like it. I like it the same way that I like it with the NHL and the shootout to determine there. I just happen to enjoy that.
Yeah, but the shootout is okay for a regular season game.
Yeah,
they're not deciding playoff games with it. For the fact that it's
That's fair.
decided in
That's
playoff
fair enough.
games and championships is what is the part that I don't like.
You know, I would rather see that in the regular season, so there's no ties.
Ties have their place in soccer. They do have their place in
I
hockey
don't like
too,
ties.
but that's just an American thing that Americans hate ties.
And need
You know,
playoffs.
there's
Yeah.
yeah, and Americans hate ties, and there's a lot of soccer fans that were upset and saying that the Union should have had home field advantage against LAFC because most other soccer leagues in the world use goal differential as the first tiebreaker, not wins versus ties. So under goal differential, the Union would have had the advantage, and that game would have been at Subaru Park. I don't really have an opinion on that, but as I'm learning more about soccer, I think there should be more consistency throughout the world, and MLS seems to be trying for that. Although I've now seen ideas floated that they want to try and do a World Cup style round robin. The MLS needs to pick a playoff format and stick with it and stop changing it every other year. They've had something like 13 different playoff formats in 27 years. That's pretty ridiculous. And it's hard for casual fans to keep track of.
And I wonder if Apple is going to have some push on this, having spent so much money and obviously having the pull that they have. You know, I'm getting ads now for Apple TV for MLS that are being sent to me through NYCFC. You might be getting for the Union. You know,
Apple still needs to hire a production staff and figure out how they're going to run a league-wide TV operation.
That's
in 4 months.
Out of Florida.
I think Apple has bigger things to worry about.
I want to get back to Philly and baseball because that was a bigger thorn in my side than anything I could imagine. So, Met fan, not a big Phillies fan. But I'm at that point in my life where rooting against a team when everyone around me is rooting for them, like I'm not into that anymore. I'm into seeing those other people get what they want. It doesn't hurt me if the Phillies win. So my heart was with the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a baseball purist, but the idea that an 87-win team was going to be the champ. I've said this on every one of our chats like every day. An 87-win team is going to be the champion in the season when 4 teams win 100 games. I hate the new playoff format.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be that opportunity can't be there when you want to make 162 games matter. It just, all due respect, Philly fans, I know you had a great run. I know your hearts were in it. And my heart wishes that you could have capped it off. But as a guy who's interested in baseball slowly gets sucked out a little by little, I think that would have been a real kick in the for baseball to have to explain how an 87-win team, when the entire season was about celebrating the sanctity of baseball and Aaron Judge's clean 62, and then you're going to have it was making me crazy. This is as much as I'm going to rant on it or verbally rant on it because you guys have text messages to prove I haven't stopped ranting on it. So
no, I agree. I agree with that, but also it's happened before. The Nationals in 2019 were in last place on June 15th. It seemed like every other year the Cardinals would take half the season off and then get hot and run to a World Series. You know, then Atlanta last year. You know, they
rest up early on to be ready for October.
Right. And there is a place for that. And America loves an underdog story. So I get it. But you cannot say, oh, fans should care about a 162 game regular season when most of it is unwatchable boredom, and then completely throw that out the window for a different form of baseball in the playoffs in which none of that matters. What are we standing around for 6 months for 162 games just to toss it all out and then have a crapshoot? Like, and yes, as a Mets fan, I am one of those teams that saw 101 wins go up in smoke. But, you know, I understand the reasons for that. But just for all of these sports leagues, I get it that the playoffs are where the money is. So that's why playoffs are expanding further and further and rewarding mediocrity in every sport. I get that.
The season ended in November.
Right. But that was also because they spent 4 months, fighting over money in a work stop.
They could have done some double headers. They could have ended this October if they wanted to.
But like in the NBA, in a 7-game series, in any 7-game series in basketball, the better team has a chance of winning 80% of the time. So you have a pretty solid opportunity to have. You are going to get an upset, but most likely the best team is going to win, and at least you're going to have two of the better teams meeting. In baseball, it's only 60% of the time. The line on the game, on the series, was negative 165, meaning the Phils had a 40% chance of winning, statistically speaking, and you were getting better odds than that betting on them. The Phillies had more money bet on them to win the series than Houston did, and the bookies still kept them as the underdog because of just where that number was. It was such a strange thing going on. And yeah, America loves an underdog story. This city would have been fired up as all get up. I probably would have snuck into the parade even this time around just to be there, because why not? And it would have been great for the city, and a ton of my friends and family are here would have been up in joy. And yet, back to JD's point, what are we doing slogging through 162 ball games if we're going to throw it out? Like, let's make these 15-game series and play 30 games, and then get your money in the barely have any games. Let's have some real long series to see. So our five pitchers, we see each pitcher 3 times or something. Like, just make it bigger, longer series, improve the end product of the better team, and not make me slog through these horrific, long, meaningless games.
And the problem with it is, I mean, obviously baseball is trying to do some things to make it more interesting for next year. Like them or hate them, the rule changes, I think, will increase the offensive output of it, which is really, when it comes right down to it, what draws. It's not the walks, it's not the small ball, it's the home run. I mean, that home run to dead center in Game 6, 450 feet is what they said it. I was guessing more of like 470, but that is a highlight reel for years to come. Every strikeout, the wild pitches, you'll forget about all of those. The long ball and the runs is what baseball cares about. And when the sport continues to lose popularity, although to its credit, apparently ratings were slightly higher this year than last year. Credit there. But again, we've talked about this before. You're going up against the TikTok generation. They don't have the passion to be able to sit there for 4 hours straight waiting for a windup. And then there's a throw to first.
Who played last year? Atlanta versus who?
Exactly. That's the point. It was Atlanta, Houston.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I mean,
Houston has been in the World Series 4 out of the last 6 years.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I mean, Houston's a big market, but Philly is much bigger than Atlanta, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, enough to make a difference for your ratings. If you have the rest of the country and then just the one city, Atlanta is going to get trumped easily by Philadelphia. Atlanta is known to be about its franchises.
Right, and Philly is all in when Philly has a winner in any sport, they will support it. I mean, the Union are now in the conversation with the other with the Big Four, and because they're winning. I saw a few posts on the Reddit thread where of somebody who was at the Xfinity Live party, and the Philly fans that were there early, waiting for the World Series and watching the Union game go to overtime. They were getting into it and asking people asking people about soccer. Like this generated a lot of positive outcome for the Union and for soccer in general, and can grow what has the potential and has already shown to be one of the better soccer markets in the country. Getting Subaru Park is a hot ticket now.
Mm-hmm.
Union
games. It's a damn good stadium.
It's a fantastic stadium, and it's a stadium that I wonder, I wonder if they're going to try and expand it somehow. Especially, you also have the World Cup coming to America in 4 years. With Philly as one of the sites, so the team is building a big new training complex that will and rec center that'll be open to the public. That there's a lot happening, and it's awesome. And Jim Curtin thanked the reporters himself at the end of the Eastern Conference playoffs, where he said, I have you guys to thank for the fact that from where the union came from, coming into existence only in 2010, versus the other teams that have been around for decades or centuries, to have come far enough where they are now in the conversation with the other four teams, and that's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
I don't know
And
if you
I
had any
think that
interest.
would keep growing.
I don't know if you had any interest, but I saw a targeted Facebook ad. I'm not going to buy it, but it was a really cool Philly shirt that had it was the backs of like five players. So it was like Andre
I've seen
Blake,
that one.
right?
Yeah.
Was that Bryce Harper, Ben Simmons, Jalen Hurts, and I forget who they had for Philly. And it was the backs of all of them kind of like in arm with each other. And I
Yeah.
thought that shirt was just freaking awesome.
It wasn't Simmons, it was Embiid.
Yeah.
Embiid. I'm
Simmons.
sorry, my bad.
I think they had Carter Hart for the Flyers.
Okay.
They had Andre Blake, Hurts, and Harper.
And Bryce Harper, yeah.
I've seen the same ad for the same shirt.
I looked at that shirt and I'm like, damn, that is respect there.
I'm sure you can find that for any 5 teams you want, Scott. Go click on that link and you'll get your New York teams.
I'm sure you probably could. Yes. No, I try to avoid Facebook targeted ads whenever possible. Facebook already knows enough about my life anyway.
I will say this. Cool. To be edited out, I'm sure, because this is useless, but those Facebook targeted ads, they get me for Valentine's Day and the kids' birthdays. Like they hit me right. I'm like, boom, okay. But I digress. Edit that out.
No. I'll leave it in.
Facebook's going to double up on its targeted ads now.
But it was one of those things that, like I said, I thought that was a nice touch. Like you said, it gave the union a lot of credit, especially after that Fungold interview where they asked somebody on the street, they're like, the Eagles are doing great. And basically, I'm so excited for Philly sports. And the reporter's like, what about the union? Like the plumbers union? And it was like, oh, God, really? It was on like Philly broadcast. It went viral. Yeah. And it's just like, this is how soccer kind of is right now. 10 years from now, soccer will overtake baseball. I still stand by that belief. But for right now, it does still need a little work.
I will put it this way. The atmosphere at a regular season MLS game, on a nice Saturday evening in the summer, way better than any baseball game that you find the same night. Games actually matter on like 162, bore snore fests.
Well, you said there was about 5,000 people at the watch party at Subaru Park the other day.
Yeah, looking around, just guessing with how because they let people sit on the bring blankets and chairs and sit on the field,
which was nice.
And they had one side of the stands open. So by my estimate, it was about 5,000-6,000 people there. And it was a great atmosphere. You can see my article that I wrote about the game and the experience at our website streampunkent.com, and I have a few videos of the goal reactions. The place really got into it. And there was other parties throughout the city. There was a sizable contingent of people that took the flight out to LA. Soccer in America has come a long way, but also has really far to go. I mean, it's come a long way, but there's also little things like for a league title game, they can't get any parking lots near the stadium because there's a USC game, and USC use their right of first refusal to basically say, screw off. You can go take a shuttle bus from Dodger Stadium 6 miles away. And
they did, or they probably Ubered it, or because that was a packed house there for LAFC.
Oh yeah, and LAFC has another one of the best home crowd environments in the league. LA, Philly, Atlanta when they're good. Like there's a lot. Portland, Seattle. There's a lot.
CFC, if it ever gets that stadium in Willits Point, which apparently there's rumors again, it may happen. the every 2-month rumor that it's going to happen.
Right, and also sorry, Scott, but one of the league's premier franchises playing in a baseball stadium with a bath towel for a championship banner is an absolute joke, and that needs to be rectified by the league. Whether it involves, I'm calling it now. I think Steve Cohen eventually buys NYCFC and builds that Willits Point Stadium. I think that's the only way that happens.
I think in this case, I don't think NYCFC has any issues with that. The fan base has any issues whatsoever with that. I believe 100% they will be completely fine with it because also they like Citi Field. The players like Citi Field better than Yankee Stadium. We've talked to the players on that. They're like, we like the grass. It has a better feel. The reverb in the stadium is so much better at Citi Field than it is at Yankee Stadium. And if you go to the games in general, you hear this.
The
Just
acoustics are way better.
the acoustics, the energy, the vibe is better at Citi Field in general. At least they had the one playoff game there, which was good. And like I said, the crowd was great on that. But it's a pain in the neck. It's a shame in a lot of ways. And yeah, it's an embarrassment. The rest of the league routinely trolls the bat towel. And I am really sorry that I used the phrase bat towel because now you're using it. you swipe my word on that one.
This scarf is bigger than the
dude. It's only like this long, man. It sucks. And it's funny because it's almost like a Where's Waldo thing when you get to the stadium because it's not. You go to Yankee Stadium, you have Monument Park. You have like all the banners of all the retired players, and it is so hard to find the bat towel, which is down the third base line, upper tier, kind of like between 430 and 431 in the sections in there. And it just looks like something that somebody just brought to the stadium and just draped over the side. It's fucking pathetic. So, anyway. Yeah. So,
there he is.
Sorry, Mike. I need it.
It's
The internet issues in this house have been getting untenable lately.
That's why I ran a
like
cable
your
from upstairs.
backdrop
It's actually
while we're at
draping over my it's draping down the stairs and across my air hockey table right now, but it works. So, all right. So we can wrap this up if you want. If you want to talk a little free agency at this point,
Yeah.
Unless you guys had anything else you want to go into.
I have one other thing which we haven't said we were going to discuss, but let's do the free agency that we spoke of, and then I have another 1 minute rant.
Well, okay, those are always your best ones.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's start this off. 131 players actually declared free agency yesterday. Most notably in this case, and leading the top of the food chain on the free agency chart is Mr. Aaron Judge. Mr. Aaron Judge, if I can swing that over to what I wanted to do, there we go. This is what he will look like in a very, very possible San Francisco Giants uniform. His frustration because he's probably going to strike out a lot over there as well. But he may command, and they've been talking about, dear God in heaven, a $500 million deal. I don't know, but
He's earned it. I will say he's earned a ridiculous payday.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think it's a good investment for the team that signs him? No,
not at all.
And normally San Francisco doesn't throw around that kind of money in free agency. So I will be very surprised if the Giants are where he lands. The Dodgers, I could see giving him that money in a heartbeat because they do hand out candy free agent deals like that. San Francisco normally doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But like everybody's going to take their shot. Oakland's saying Trey Fitty. We have
a coupon here for Dairy Queen.
Yeah, like
You own the city, and the city would be yours.
Card with 8 punches in it already. Will this work?
Here's the thing. People don't realize, especially when you're, outside of Cali, San Francisco and Oakland are ridiculously close to each other. It's like 20 minutes. It's like 20 minutes, half hour. It's really close. So he grew up in that area. The big thing in this case is the fact that, he grew up a San Francisco Giants fan. His family, his parents are from the area, and his parents and eventually his mom, bouncing across the country, waiting for home run 62, I think tired her out a little bit. And let's not forget his most recent game with the Yankees fans booed him, and even the fans have come out, ripping on the fans that did it. But I watched a great YouTube video the other day that a lot of the Yankee players are privately talking to their agents and talking about the fact that they don't like playing, with the Yankees anymore because the fans are just so volatile that they're like, I don't want to be here. This contract is done. A lot of Yankee players have been talking privately with their agents about this. So it's that culture that you're getting in the Bronx right now. And I think it's going to cost, their team, Aaron Judge.
I wonder who else it has cost them for a while now. It's not just because it's coming out now doesn't mean it hasn't been going on since the days people watched the boo A-Rod, right? Like A-Rod would carry the team to the playoffs and then be exhausted and then use steroids so that he could carry them further in the playoffs, and the fans would boo him for that. Like, you don't think he went back and started talking to other players? Like, they just no matter what you do, they're not gonna. And then this guy hit 62 home runs. Now here's the real thing. Of course he wants to go to San Francisco because he wants to hit 72 in San Francisco. Of course he wants to go to San Francisco. Now, whether they will open up the money enough or whether he will give him a discount, and yes, somebody's going to be paying him a lot of money at the end of his deal. And it's going to hurt the team's pocketbook. But I don't feel bad for these teams. Like, you got to do it. You got to try to win. And you make a lot of money, especially the Yankees. I said it before. I came back from Paris. Top shelf goods, Dior. But the Yankee symbol is up there with it. Like, you could put that symbol on anything and pay for his contract in a year from rich people's pockets that want to be Yankee fans and want to double brand up. So there's no excuse for the Yankees not to sign him unless he does not want to be there. And I believe this talk that's going around, the Yankee fans are unappreciative. I don't just understand how lucky they were in the 90s to win all those World Series. Like, that was a statistical.
That was a different dynamic, though.
Yankee fans are entitled spoiled brats and have been for decades. And the Yankees themselves are now essentially a law firm regurgitating and selling the childhood nostalgia back to their own fans, and it's multi-generational, for depending on how old you are, it could be Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra, it could be the Reggie Jackson, Ron Guidry teams of the 70s, the core four of the 90s and 2000s. Just you have everybody covered with that, and that's all they're doing is just selling hope and we can win a World Series every 10 years, and it builds a warped expectation of, if you don't get to the World Series, your season's a failure, which is absolutely ridiculous for any fan base. The game has changed. The Yankees are not winning every single year. In hockey, the Montreal Canadiens aren't, the Celtics aren't. Just the game is different. Free agency and drafting and developing is different now. You don't have the same few players on the Yankees or just a handful of teams, at least not to the extent that it used to be. So the Yankees don't seem like they want to do that anymore. They're happy to just put something out there. You get enough fans, sit back, watch the cash roll in. Their payroll is about the same 200-ish million that it was in the late 2000s, 15 years ago.
Forgetting inflation on top of that, too.
Their revenues have doubled. They're just pocketing it all. I mean, yes, they're not a small market team, but they're doing the thing. If you just chop off a few zeros, and they're doing the same thing that the owners of the Marlins, Pittsburgh, Colorado, all the small market teams that don't bother trying and just pocket the revenue sharing money and throw out AAA teams. While the Yankees may not be going that low, you just toss a few zeros on the same numbers and they're doing the exact same thing. They're not making an effort to win. They're not drafting and developing. Any other team with any other track that had a record like Brian Cashman over the past 10 years, Cashman would have been fired years ago.
Mm-hmm. George would have fired him years ago.
Right. George
would have let him spend the money he may have wanted to spend. Let's
But again, even if you spend that money and he doesn't get it, He'd fire,
Right.
he nearly fired Brian Cashman at least a dozen times.
Yes.
He almost fired him after 2001.
He almost fired Joe Torre after winning World Series. I mean,
yeah. But here's the big thing about this is a team right now that for the next few years, I want to say 3 to 5 years easy, no team is going to go up against the Astros. The Astros have to age themselves out before a new generation can come in. This is a prime team that is strong. This is a team that will challenge every single year. And it doesn't matter personally. I will say, honestly, don't even bother to sign Aaron Judge because he is not going to make the difference. In this case, they can't compete with a team like with Houston. So you have already some bear of contracts there. You've got the Stanton contract going on. You got the Donaldson deal this year. You've got Garrett Cole who's going to start breaking down over time. Question about spider tack. Let's throw that in the mix too. And obviously what happened during playoff time. And right now that is a team that is in desperate need of just taking a blowtorch, setting it on fire, and starting it over again. But the Yankees do not.
How many games did they win this season?
Doesn't matter. How many playoff games did they win?
Because this idea that you have a good team and then they're bad in the playoffs and there's something you should do differently is not a good idea. It's not a sound way of thinking. The playoffs are a coin flip. The playoffs are a coin flip. That's been my argument against the Phillies, and it's my argument about, blow up the Yankees. To what? They are a very good baseball team.
They're an old team.
But also, if the Yankees didn't have Judge, they'd be a 500 team this year.
Yeah.
That I agree with.
There is nobody else in that lineup that really scares you at all.
The Yankees were well under 500 after the All-Star break because their players started to get tired. Stanton got tired. Donaldson got tired. The only reason they won as many games as they did is because they were off to such a magnificent start that people were asking, can they win 115 and set the new regular season record? But then after the All-Star break, that was the end of that. And then you saw the results come playoff time where they barely got past Cleveland, and then just got crushed the next round.
Yeah, I don't take the playoff results to mean anything. And that's the difference between you and me. That the playoffs are a coin flip. So for them to make the playoffs, that tells me that's a good team. Now, are they aging? Yes. Did Judge give them 10 extra wins? I mean, it's not below 500, but did Judge make the difference between them being a playoff team and being an also ran? Absolutely. So do you get rid of those 10 wins above replacement? I mean, that's your call. If you get rid of Judge, you have blown up the team. That's 10 wins above average replacement that you got rid of. He had one of the greatest seasons ever compared to his peers at the same time. So it's hard for me to be like, just get rid of the guy. I don't think he's going to stay. I don't know that the Yankees.
I don't think he will either.
I won't think so.
I feel like
down a deal already.
Yeah, I feel like this report of not liking being booed and the other players come. I feel like the other Yankees told guys on the team, hey, I ain't coming back. And they told their agents, let this be known. Judge, they like him and they understand and they want it to be known to the Yankee fans that you are the reason we are going to start leaving your team. And that is my guess on trying to read the tea leaves of what the stories that are being leaked and that he's going. Now, is it San Francisco? Do they have enough money? I don't know. LA has enough money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cohen has enough money, and that would be a way to really irk it to the Yankees. The Red Sox, of course, always
Boston
out there.
has enough money. They don't want to spend it, but they have enough money.
Remember, they also just dropped $102 million on Edwin Diaz in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
That's going to age poorly. Speaking of deals that will age poorly.
Yeah, I was talking to Ernie.
I imagine Cohen is, in his mind, is George Steinbrenner, which means there's no such thing as a bad deal. This is my toy, and I want it to be shiny, not this is my money-making me deal. And if that's your attitude, which is what you as a fan want your owner to be, is you sit there, and then you pay Bobby Bonilla for another 30 years, and you don't care. You're like, whatever. I can afford to do that. I want my hot rod to be shiny and fast this year. Get me a new air intake and take off this muffler, and I can afford the ticket when I go 130. And that's who Steve Cohen seems to be, and that's who LA is being right now. and it's not who the Yankees are. And back to JD's point, the Yankees being a small market team with a lot of money is disgusting and it hurts baseball. And if that's who they're going to be, Steinbrenner needs to sell the team. They're not going to be able to sign him because I don't think he wants to stay. But that's different than signing into a contract that's going to hurt him in the long run.
But they won't sell the team because they're making too much money from the team.
Yeah.
As a Mets fan, it is so strange going from an ownership group like the Wilpons, who or the Coupons, as as our editor calls them, where that is, and it's an appropriate name, where they would be looking to save money or not re-sign people, or just they went on the cheap every chance they could get. To go from somebody who is a bajillionaire who prints money and just like 100 million, fine, I got that on me right now. Here, have it.
Tax.
Yep, just it's like monopoly money to him. Like it is so crazy going from one end of the spectrum to the other in a few years. And this team's going to have a $400 million payroll next year. That's insane.
Yeah.
And he straight up said he wants to be Dodgers East. What did the Dodgers do when the Guggenheim Group took over? They had a barren farm system, so they just started throwing out money for free agents. And that's, since the Mets need time to build the farm system back up, they're doing the exact same thing.
Uh-huh.
They need to rebuild the bullpen completely from scratch. Their entire bullpen and half their starting rotation are free agents. You have DeGrom, you have Nito, a homegrown center fielder who they need to re-sign, who's probably going to get another $100 million on his own. He has Scott Boras as a client. The Wilpons wouldn't even talk to Scott Boras' clients who were in free agency. Cohen will just say, "Okay, what do you want?" and probably give it to him. That's nuts.
It is crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah, like the numbers for closers that sign big money deals are terrible. Like they usually go like look at Aroldis Chapman, Craig Kimbrell. Kenley Jansen is trending down. Like all of with the exception, that's why Mariano Rivera was the best at what he did. Not only because he was a shutdown reliever, but because he did it for so long. Closers burn out fast, and we've already seen it. We saw it with Diaz in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at Chapman now. Statistically, that's probably where Diaz is going to be 3
They
years.
left him off the postseason roster. That says a lot right
Yep.
there when you're paying the guy $16 million a year.
So, like this, if they get 2 good years out of him, that'll be great. But by the end of that deal, but here's the difference: is Cohen will just say, whatever, trade him, retain salary, move on, next.
But that's the nature of Major League Baseball now. You pay now, you suffer later.
Yeah, that and more so than other sports, because football you can cut the guy. Basketball, even when somebody gets to the end of the contract, they're usually still making some sort of contribution. Plus, the players there get so much money, they're like, I'll take a 2-year deal where I can opt out. Like, you don't look around and see a lot of guys who have aged out of their contracts. Russell Wilson on LA. It's like the one guy who's got a contract who's not living up to the money and hasn't opted out. Even the Beard opted out in Philadelphia to sign a more team-friendly contract. So it's like, it is baseball. It's the one where you got this huge contract, 10 years out, you're like, oh, great. He's just sitting there. But it's not a salary cap issue. It's a will the owner pay issue. And that seems to be the difference in LA, hopefully now in New York with the Mets, and used to be, and what is expected of the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, half the owners in baseball have no interest in spending money.
Right.
That isn't good for the sport either, but that's a different conversation. So, but the ones that do are spending like drunken sailors, and that's what the players want. So it's good for growing their salaries. Is it good for the game? I don't know, but you can make arguments both ways for that. But it's it's definitely a different dynamic, especially for the fact that there's no, in the other sports, they've come up with rules to save the owners from themselves, which is why you only have a maximum of 5 years for a contract in basketball, 8 years in hockey. And football rarely has any contracts longer.
In the Devils, they try for 15 once.
What's that?
And the Devils try for 15 once.
Right. And then they got nailed for it, even though every other team was doing it too.
Yeah.
But because of all that, that's why now it's a maximum of 8 years for those deals, to spread out the cap hit. Baseball doesn't have any of that. So that's why you have these crazy 13, 15 year, 12, 13, 15 year deals.
The union's that strong. Yeah. So, all right. Obi, I think you had a rant of some sort.
I do. I just want to say to the members of the...
Hang on one sec. We're calling this segment, by the way, Spencer for Ire. It's not going to work the way I want it to. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, bad time for an internet connection.
Oh no.
God.
I'm just going to have him start. I'm just going to have him start again from scratch if we get signal back.
Your rant is so hard as internet.
I'm going to make sure. Yeah, like I said, I want to give him a fresh start on that. So we'll kibitz until basically we know. Yeah, right now I'm seeing weak signal. As soon as basically he comes back, I'm going to give him full window on that. But what are we going to do? So
yeah. While we're waiting for him to come back, I'll just make one last Union point. So even though the Union lost the championship, for them to get as close as they did was fantastic for the sport.
And you beat New York in the process too, which is nice.
Yeah, that's always fun.
I don't think you realize he's out right now too. Oh wait, okay, all right. So that really sucks, by the way. But but at least your other your football team is doing well. Hang on.
Is it?
Obi, can you hear us now?
I can hear you now. Did any of my rant come through?
No,
you just said I have a rant and then froze.
I want it as soon as you started. You're just like, so right. I'm going to give you a full window. Go for it, sir. Spencer.
Don't give me the full window. I think that's what froze up my system. Like as soon as I went big, the system's like, oh, he's big. Let's freeze up.
All right, so I'm going to say the full window by basically full opportunity. Go for it, sir.
All right. So I am reaching out to the members of the Hall of Fame Contemporary Baseball Era Committee. Some of you actually work at the Hall of Fame, which means your job is to get people to go. I did not go to the Hall of Fame for the last 30 years because my kids weren't interested in baseball. But my kids are close to having children. They're getting into that mode. I will not take my grandchildren to your little place in Cooperstown if the two best ball players I've ever seen aren't there. I don't care what they did. We put our eyes on the field to watch Barry Bonds smack home runs and Roger Clemens throw 100 miles per hour before everybody was doing it. Those two guys define their era of baseball. They are two of the greatest players to ever play the game, even before they started chewing drugs. Please put them in. And just remember, Darryl Strawberry would have hit 1,000 home runs if he chose steroids over cocaine. So please do the right thing. Get those guys in so I can take my grandkids. That's my rent, which I will be doing every year until those two guys are in. And for the record, I hate both of them as ball players. I respect them, but I never was a fan of either of them.
Fair enough. That is, by the way, Spencer for Ire, a new segment I think we may want to run with on something like this because I just really like the wordplay on that. But yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I was never a Barry Bonds fan ever, but Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame, despite obviously everything hanging over his head when it came to steroids. If the commissioner of baseball, who was at the top of all of this, is in the Hall of Fame, why can't the players be?
Tony La Russa
are too.
And all of the other managers from that era are in the Hall of Fame. Tony La Russa was doing everything short of injecting the players with roids themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So he's in the Hall of Fame. Bud Selig, who oversaw the whole thing, is in the Hall of Fame. The owners and everybody else who did it. And I guess I qualify as a sports writer at this point to say this, for the fact that these writers need to get off their high horse for the fact that they did nothing, that they said and did nothing about it for years, and are now trying to act like they're the moral arbiters of the sport when they did nothing and said nothing while it was going on. This revisionist history. Oh, Mike Lupica, you're going to get back all the money you made from writing the Summer of '98 book, yet you're going to get on a high horse and say and poo-poo all these players who did steroids. I've said before, and I'll say it again. I believe Jose Canseco when he said that 75% of the players, in that era were on something. You may not like the messenger. Canseco has his own many personal issues, but the message was right. I assume that everybody who played in that era was cheating. But
every finger he pointed came up accurate. Like if he named a name, it was like, oh look, there it is. Yeah.
And it's funny, it wasn't until Mark McGwire hemmed and hawed in front of Congress that people suddenly realized, you know what, maybe there was something to what Canseco said, because nobody took him seriously for a while. Because his reputation preceded him. So nobody really took anything that he had to say to heart. And then Canseco was like, my lawyer told me not to say anything. And that's like, okay, when you plead the fifth, it's like, okay, what are you pleading the fifth to? And then suddenly Canseco's credibility skyrocketed in this subject. And Palmeiro and Sammy Sosa, who suddenly couldn't speak English, all of these things came out. And then suddenly Bud Selig gets in the Hall of Fame.
I guarantee there is somebody in the Hall of Fame right now that has already been inducted that did steroids.
Probably.
But since their dealer wasn't caught, like Kirk Radomski was, they didn't end up in the Mitchell report. Guaranteed there's somebody is.
Probably right.
There's a lot of players that it could, and that there are players in the Hall of Fame, just they didn't get caught. That's the only difference. Some got caught, some didn't.
It's impossible for me to disagree with that. Like it is, the odds of it only being that one dealer are astronomical. And then for those guys to have succeeded either as pitchers against the guys we do know who are on steroids, or as hitters against the pitchers we know are on steroids, that also makes it just the odds are so slim. And like to me, the biggest one is the managers, La Russa, Torre, an old guy, was it Herzog in Atlanta? No, Herzog was
Bobby
St.
Cox.
Louis.
Bobby Cox.
Bobby Cox. Like, look at the guys on his teams that they won World Series with. If you're winning with cheaters, okay, maybe you didn't know what was happening, but how can I give you credit then if I'm going to call these guys cheaters? So, my view on steroids is completely the other way anyway, but that's, I understand I'm a little retarded on that, but those guys made the game and kept our eyes on the game. And we loved watching Sosa and McGwire. We know where we were when McGwire hit that home run. And look, McGwire didn't make us wait like Judge did. He I got it. Boom, here it is. And
September 8th, 1998.
I was on Route 17 on my way home from Ramapo College in Mawa.
My fiance had dumped me the day before. And I was sitting there watching the game, and Joe Buck said, no matter where you are, you will always remember this moment. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, I will. She dumped me for a coworker at Walmart. Yeah, that was not my proudest moment at the time. I'm not gonna lie, but 24 years ago, so it's ancient history way in the back. But yeah, I was just a wreck that day.
I was 13, and that was the first year that I really paid attention to baseball.
Fair.
And
couldn't keep your eyes off it.
Yeah, even though I was a Mets fan, but I was still watching because it was, and also just it was part of the national conversation. Every single channel would cover, would drop what they were doing to cut over to a McGwire or Sosa at bat.
And it was on a little bit.
You saw it a little bit, but outside of baseball fans, nobody really cared.
Yeah,
about Judge.
And what Met gave up that home run?
Steve Traxel.
There you go. Yep. So All right, gentlemen. Anything else?
I think I'm good. I love this. Now I'm gonna have to come up with rants just every now and then for the Spencer for Ire section.
Dude, we got Spencer for Ire on one side. I got Ryan's rants on going on the cinema side. So, yes, we're gonna basically be having these segments on there where you just guys sit there and just gripe, bitch, piss, grumble, and moan about anything that's just irking you right there. So I like it. We're gonna run with that. Anyway, anything else, gentlemen?
I am good and kosher.
Cool. Muzzle
College
up.
basketball starts up this week. Another game where games actually, another sport where games actually matter, and we have 30 or 40 games instead of 82.
And 60 points, can win you the game. Not, you
Yeah.
can't score 110 points and still lose.
Remember the name on the women's basketball side, Lauren Parklane.
Okay.
In Park Lane.
Seton Hall's point guard is a finalist for the Nancy Lieberman Award. She's 5'3", ball of fire, runs all over the court. She's going to be winning awards, and we'll see how far Seton Hall goes with her. Putting it out there now.
And at 5'3", that's a feel-good story right there, too. So it's like a Spud Webb there.
Yeah.
But
and she plays all over the place.
Nice. All right, folks, I appreciate it as always. I'm Scott Churchson. That's Mr. J.D. Walker, and that is Mr. Obi Spencer. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Have a great day. As always, stay cool.